right, shalom, shalom, Most High in Christ, bless, mic check, mic check. Shalom, Israel, mic check, mic check. Hold up, bear with me, Israel, bear with me. I don't know if y'all can hear me. I'm trying to make sure. I'm trying to get in here to see. All right, shalom there, shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ, bless, Most High in Christ, bless. Go ahead on the transition to shalom. Good morning, Most High in Christ, bless. My name is Officer Nahum, IUIC Raleigh. I'll be your teacher this morning for History in the AM. I know y'all can see the title. Y'all see the title. We're going to be doing Our Father, the series Our Father. I know I've done Abraham, from Abraham, Isaac to Jacob. So we're in Jacob, you know what I'm saying, part 2. You know what I'm saying? If y'all haven't seen part 1, go ahead, check out part 2. Let's see here real quick. Let me get in my thing. I was trying to make sure I get into the, check the internet and everything, trying to see, make sure I can hear it on y'all end as well. All right. Let me see here real quick. Let's see. Make sure, bear with me real quick. Let me see what's going on. Hold up real quick. Get up in here. Try to get all my stuff together, make sure I'm lined up. You know, hey, you know, it's early in the morning for everybody. That's right, that's right. Okay. Yeah, so I know I had, I want to say I left off in Genesis chapter 29. So I'm a start back with Genesis 29 a little bit, just to kind of give, do somewhat of a minor recap, but just kind of go into our forefathers and then when the 12 tribes, you know what I'm saying, when they was born. With that, we're gonna start in Genesis chapter 29 and verse. We're gonna start here in verse 31. All right, it says, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, He opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Right, so we know about how Jacob had, how he was married to both Rachel and Leah. Right, so we know how Laban was being a nigga. I had to say it like that. He was being a Negro. We got, all of us got certain family members. People in our family, could be cousins, uncles, aunts, parents, brothers, sisters. Even friends, close friends. Right, that's in the world. We know how they have that Negro mind state. Right, so he got beguiled for the oldest daughter, for Leah. And now, you know what I'm saying, and then he worked, he had to work an additional 7 years for Rachel again, so he was tricked with Leah, and then he worked another 7 years. Out of 14 years he worked for Rachel, but he ended up getting both daughters, right? So he married to both of them. So now it's going into, both sisters, they had, a little resentment. I would say it's more or less Rachel. She had more resentment toward her sister Leah. Okay, so she started envying her. So there was some hatred and stuff, some some bickerment and stuff going on taking place. But we'll read about it. So all right, just kind of giving you guys a recap. All right, so Genesis chapter 29 verse 31 again. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. So Rachel couldn't have kids. Her womb was closed at this time, right? So verse 32, and Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. So Reuben is the firstborn son of the 12 tribes, right? So for she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. Okay, so that's what Reuben means. See a son. We see that part where looked upon. So see a son. That's what Reuben means. So so she's going through that situation where her sister, Leah's sister didn't like her, Rachel. So that's how how this name came about. All right, verse 33. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. Okay, so now she got Simeon. Simeon means hearing. Okay, so so she was going through the same thing with with her sister Rachel. So, hey, the Lord bless her womb again. Say, you know what, you'll have another son. Okay, Simeon, because I can hear your affliction. I can hear what you're going through. So, verse 34, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. Okay, so now this is Levi. So you see, Levi and Simeon, they're on the same island, island of Santo Domingo. I hope I'm saying it right, Santo Domingo, but pretty much, with the Haiti and Dominican Republic. Okay, so that's what that's going into. So they always, pretty much mention together. We hear this a lot in the scriptures. You know what I'm saying? As we read on down the line, Lord's will, once I could get to the rest of the 12 tribes. Verse 35. All right, says, and she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah and left barren. So Judah means praised. Okay, that's what it means. The Lord's praised. So that's now we read about those 4 sons. Those are the 4 oldest sons, and they came from Leah. Okay. Now we go into Genesis chapter 30. All right, Genesis chapter 30, it says, and when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, okay, and said unto Jacob, give me children or else I die. So this is how she's feeling. She upset. She like, hey, my sister done gave you 4 sons. You know what I'm saying? I haven't gave you no children, not even a daughter. So now she's upset. She got envy toward her sister. So she's, there's some strife going on in the house. So envy is meaning, you want something that you can't have, or you ain't meant to have right now at this time, or you try to do something to get what you can't have. You would try to sin. You're willing to sin to do something to get something. And also you start looking at that person. Envy, but envy becomes hatred, or malice and all that stuff. It'll start lining up with it. So that's what's taking place here. All right. So verse 2, and Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. Right, so Jacob, he upset with Rachel with what she just said. They're talking about somebody. You don't give me no kids. I'm gonna die. She just talking crazy. So you can kind of see like Rachel had a kind of a worldly mindset. You know what I'm saying? Versus Leah, her mindset was she was kind of spoiled, and she thinks she should have things her way. All right, because she knew Jacob loved her. They loved her more than Leah. Okay, Leah knew that too, you know. But I'm going to read it again. Verse 2. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. And he said, Am I in God's stead? Who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? You know, he's like, hey, who, you know, hey, that ain't me. Ain't up to me to make you get pregnant. You know, that's the Lord, you know, closing your womb for a reason, you know. And, you know, the reason is because she hated her sister, okay? All right, verse 3. And she said, Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. So this is her mindset. She like, well, okay, since I'm not giving you no kids, going unto my handmaid, you know what I'm saying, and through her, you know what I'm saying, I can have children through her. Okay, sound familiar, right? This sounds like something in history, you know, something that took place before, right? So let's look at this real quick. We're gonna go in history. Let's go to Genesis. Hold this. We'll go back. We'll go to Genesis chapter 16 and verse 1. Okay, 16 and verse 1. It says, now this is our foremother Sarah, right? Remember Sarai? Her name was Sarai at the time. So now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. And she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar, right? So now we read about Hagar, right? Again, it says that Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. Okay, so that's how she looking. She like, yeah, I may be able to obtain children by her. You know, just like what Rebecca's saying. You know, not Rebecca. Rachel is saying about, you know, herself. You know, so she like, hey, well, I'm not making you no kids, so you going unto my handmaid. You know, so the same thing took place back then, you know what I'm saying, with Sarai and Abraham. So, you know, that's how Ishmael was born. Ishmael was born through Hagar. For those who don't know, you know, Ishmael is the forefather of the Arabs today. Okay, they descend from him. Okay, all right. So we go back here real quick to where we left off at. I believe we left off at Genesis chapter what is it, 30. Yeah, hold on one second. Yeah, Genesis 30 and verse 3. All right, it says, and she said, Behold, my handmaid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. Okay, so that's where her mindset is at. It says, and she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife, and Jacob went in unto her. And Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. So now she got pregnant, the handmaid, right? And it says, and Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan. So this is about our forefather Dan, right? So Dan name means judge, okay? That's what it means, judge. That's what Dan means, okay? All right, so let me go here. So verse 7 says, and Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again and bare Jacob a second son. So now, you know, so now the handmaid got a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. So that's what Naphtali means, to wrestle. Okay, wrestling or wrestle. All right, so, you know, she let you know, hey, they was, you know, going at each, you know, arguing, you know, having disagreements. That, you know, kind of almost like a competition of some sort, you know. Let me make sure I center myself real quick so y'all can see me. So it's almost like a competition, you know, they having amongst each other. So, hey, you know, so that's why they said the wrestling. All right, that's what Naphtali means. Verse 9 says, when Leah saw that she left barren, she took Zipporah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife, right? So now Leah, she does the same thing. You know, at this time, remember, say after she had the fourth son, so she went barren. She wasn't, you know, getting pregnant again, you know, at that particular time. So now she like, you know what? Since my sister did this, let me do the same thing so I can get my husband more, you know, more seed. so she give her handmaid Zipporah, you know, and so Jacob, you know, can make her a concubine as well. Verse 11, and Leah said, I might have jumped up too soon. All right, verse 10. And Zipporah, Leah's handmaid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. Okay, so Gad means troop, okay, or company or troop. So, like a warrior or a military, an army or some sort, So that's what Gad means, a troop. All right. And verse 12 says, and Zipporah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. So Leah, so her handmaid had another son. And Leah said, happy am I for the daughters. I will happy am I for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. Okay, so Asher, that's what Asher means. Means happy. Okay, Asher means to be happy. All right, and it says, verse 14, that Reuben went in the days of wheat of harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Right. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. Right. So, if y'all get a chance, look up mandrakes. So I'm going to pull up the definition here real quick. I forgot to load it up. But I'm going to pull it up on here real quick just so I can show you what mandrakes are. So mandrakes they do exist. It is a plant, for those who don't know. Bear with me real quick. Open all tabs. What's this? Is that it right there? Mandrakes. Where we at real quick? I know that's alrighty. Hold up. I'm gonna have to put it in here again somehow. I might have put it on a different thing. So mandrakes, right, is the plant. It says mandrakes. It's like it's a plant that comes during it comes during the harvest time of the spring. Okay, like during the time of you would say probably during the time of Pentecost time frame. So, it's a plant that comes up. The root of it is poisonous. Okay, it's a poisonous root, but it has a nice pretty flower on it. But it bears fruit, and it's like a kind of like a little small apple. They say that forms on the top of it, but it's like an aphrodisiac. You know what it does. Y'all know what that is. So. So you just imagine, that's what what Leah was trying to get from Reuben to get that fruit so she can give it to Jacob. Okay, so just let you know that's what mandrakes are. All right, so Genesis chapter 30 and verse 14 again, it says, and Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field. So that's what he means, a wheat harvest. Okay, now it's time to harvest wheat. That's going into Pentecost time frame. So that's when he found the mandrakes, those fruits in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Right. So now Leah, she got those mandrakes, what I'm saying, from her son. It says, then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. She's like, give me those mandrakes, man. So let me get them things from you. And she said unto her, is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? Right, so she, now you can see that there's, some disagreements and, bickering and arguing and stuff. They fighting over their husband, they're fighting over Jacob. And it says, and wouldest thou take away my son's mandrake also? You would not. So now you want to take my son's mandrakes too? So took my husband, and now you try to take, now you want to take the mandrakes, right? So, and Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. Okay, that's what she said. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. Hey, so I got these mandrakes for you. You know what they're gonna do. The mandrakes, something like it's an aphrodisiac, so it's something like I guess like what you call a blue pill or something like that. Y'all know what I'm getting at. I can't think of the name of it. Viagra. That's what it is. Okay, but it's showing it's a natural thing here. All right, it says, and he lay with her that night. In verse 17, and God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived. Right, so he heard Leah conceived and bare Jacob the fifth son. So now she got 5 sons. You know what I'm saying? Through her. So let's find out. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire. Remember she said, so I have hired thee with the verse before, verse 16. So I had hired thee for my son's mandrakes, right? So now you jump back to verse 18. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband, and she called his name Issachar. All right, so that's what Issachar means, hire. He is hired. And we know Issachar like to work. You know what I'm saying? That's our brothers, the so-called Mexicans, today, or the Aztec Indians. That's the tribe of Issachar. Okay. Verse 19, and Leah conceived again and bare Jacob the sixth son. And Leah said, God hath endowed me with a good dowry, and will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulon. Okay, so this is what Zebulon means, dwelling. So you always hear about Issachar and Zebulon. We always hear about them all the time, and they stayed close by each other. Issachar is so-called Mexican, and then Zebulon is Central America. Okay, they always dwelling amongst each other still to this day. Same thing with, like I said, if you notice how it goes, like what is it? How we see Simeon and Levi. They always together. They dwell together. They, of course, they don't get along right now at this particular time, except for in the truth. But they always dwell together, and they're close in age. And same thing here with Issachar and Zebulon. They're close in age, so they grew up and they always dwell together. So verse 21, and afterwards she bare a daughter and called her name Dinah. Okay, so this is what Dinah means. Dinah means, in the Bible it says judging. That's what it means. There's a particular history that takes place later on once we get to it, we'll read up about it. Verse 22, and as a matter of fact, this is the only daughter of Jacob right here. Jacob's one and only daughter was Dinah. Okay, and God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb. So now Rachel, what I'm saying, now she's, the Lord is dealing with her now. Okay, it says, and she conceived and bare a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph. Okay, so now this is when we read about our forefather Joseph. Okay, Joseph. What does Joseph mean here? We always say fruitful and multiplying, but Joseph mean adding. Okay, adding. So pretty much the same thing. Be fruitful, multiply. So now she finally get a son added. After all those times of all the other sons being born, right? So, and she called his name Joseph and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. Okay, verse 25, and it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away that I may go unto my own place and to my country. So this is what this is what Joseph, he's like, not Joseph. Jacob is like, hey, you know what? Hey, I've been here. I'm ready to go back to my, to my land of nativity. I'm ready to go back. I done did my duties, did what I'm supposed to do, so I'm ready to come on back. So let's see what Laban says. Verse 26, give me my wives and this is Jacob. Jacob said, give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. Because he let him know, hey, I done did my works. I done worked 7 years, an additional 7 years, 14 years for my wives. They done give me children, so on and so forth. Now, hey, it's time for me to leave. All right. Um, and verse 27, and Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry. He said, if I found favor, stay a little bit longer, man. Stay longer, man. He said, you don't got to go back. That's what he's saying. For I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. So he knows that he getting blessed just because of Jacob. He wasn't. The Lord wasn't dealing with him like that, but he dealing with him. He blessing him because he know that man. Because the Lord was with Jacob, and that's how things starting to increase for him. Things starting to get better. Okay, let's see here real quick. So verse 28, and he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. That's what he asked. He says, let me know what you want to get paid, what you need, and I'll give it to you. Okay, and he said, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with thee. Right. So he's letting them know. Say, hey, I worked in the field. I tend to your cattle, your herds and stuff. In verse 30 said, for it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now when I shall provide for my own house also. So he's letting them know, like, hey, I need stuff, Hey, I don't have anything. Everything is yours that I'm working for. I'm here, I'm working, do what I'm supposed to do. But hey, shoot, I don't got nothing in my name, I'm helping you out. So let me look here real quick. What is it at? This might be the difference. Okay, so just let you know, So Laban, he's rich at this particular time. He's got a lot. He's rich in cattle. He got a lot of stuff that's taking place, right? Let's see here. Let me show you something real quick. I'm gonna put this up. I got this information from online. It says in biblical times, cattle were considered a primary measure of wealth. Okay, a critical source of labor for agriculture, and essential for sacrificial offerings. Right. So we know, today we see people that got cows, who got sheep, goats, things of that nature. If you have all that, you pretty wealthy. You got a lot of wealth, a lot of land. Because you got to have land to provide those type of animals, because they got to graze. They eat off the ground. They eat the grass, and then they use the bathroom. Wherever they go to, their droppings and stuff. So when they poop or whatever, it's fertile to the land. It makes the land fertile. So you got to think about they going through, they walking, they stepping on their own poop, and it's getting mashed up in the ground. So they agitate the ground, break up the ground, and and do stuff. So that thing become fruitful. That's why it be a lot of grass, in that area where you would see a lot of cattle and stuff. And they don't just, some of them, I think goats, they would eat all your grass all the way to the roots, from what I was told. But cows, they don't eat everything. So that grass will grow back nice and pretty. But it's letting us know, it show you the type of wealth, the type of agriculture. So I'm just going to read a few things here. Let's see here. I'm going to read this again. It says, in biblical times, cattle were considered a primary measure of wealth, a critical source of labor for agriculture, and essential for sacrificial offerings. So you had to sacrifice cattle and stuff like that for the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Or he was probably selling those cattle to the other people of the land that was there. Of course they had their own gods and stuff like that. But they still make their money. It said, as vital assets, herds symbolize divine blessings and prosperities, often used for plowing. So you need to plow the land, threshing. You making, you threshing like wheat and stuff like that, and transporting heavy goods. So you need things to go from point A to point B. So pretty much like a moving truck. Let's say you got a vehicle, and you need to load things up and move stuff from point A to point B. You got distribution, goods. This is what they used. They was using animals like cows, camels, and stuff like that. So this is what this is going into, right? So it says a sign of wealth and status. Patriarchs like Abraham and Job measured their prosperity by their livestock, including herds of cattle. Agriculture labor, oxen were used as beasts of burden for plowing fields and pulling carts. All right, sacrificial animals, cattle, particularly bulls and calves, were crucial for sin and peace offerings and tabernacles and temple system. Substances, while goats and sheep were more common for daily dairy. So you had milk. Cattle provided milk, hide, and on special occasions, meat, often as a delicacy for guests. So you'll kill that animal and dress it up, and that's what everybody in the village or wherever, everybody amongst your group, your family group, that's what they ate. And they was able to do that. So if you got cattle, you can make cheese, you can make off the milk, you can make cheese, you can make butter. All that stuff was used, and then if you had abundance of it, you took all that stuff and you made an abundance of it and you sold it, at the market. They had markets and stuff back then, so they would go out there and they'll sell that thing to the other people and make money off it. Same thing with the hide. They make leather. You can make rugs. Different things you can make with that, purses or whatever. Like how they do today. So and we know leather ain't cheap. Leather lasts a long time. So this is how our forefathers, how they did with all that type of herd. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that out to y'all as far as how Laban, how he got rich, during that time because of Jacob's sake, not Laban's sake, but Jacob's sake. Okay, all right. Let me go back here real quick, where we left off at. All right, I'm gonna just start back at verse 30. Verse 30. So this is Genesis chapter 30 and verse 30. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now when shall I provide for my own house also? So that we like, hey, I'm gonna deal with you, so I'm gonna work for you a little bit longer, and for the sake of, so I can get some substance as well. My family ain't got nothing. We got to get things from you, and we working, but I need my own now. Verse 31, and he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. He said, don't give me anything for free. He said, if thou will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. He said, I'm I go there and keep your flock. Make sure, they're good. Take care of them. Continue doing what I'm doing. Cause that's something that Israel was good at, was agriculture or dealing with, the herds and stuff. Okay, we'll read about that later on, and in the series, I would say it like that. Well, I could just jump up ahead. What the heck, So, you read about that when Joseph went to when he went to Egypt, right? You'll read later on in the chapters. We'll read about how Joseph said, my fathers, my peoples, and them were, they kept, they were people that work out in the field, as far as dealing with the cattle and stuff. So Pharaoh was like, hey, you know what? You can put your people here in the land of Goshen. That's where they kept all the cattle and the herds, and that's what Israel was working at during that particular time. Okay, so that's how our family and them got experience in all that type of stuff, dealing with agriculture. For anybody who's who may be new to this or whatever, you got some people that's watching online. Hey, also this, agriculture also go into like science and stuff too. Right now I'm going to school for horticulture, and it's not agriculture. You're dealing more with the plants. I'm not dealing with animals, but it's a science behind it too. So that everything from the creation, all that stuff, deal with the Lord science, okay, creation and stuff. And also you're learning about plants, how much, what is it, how to, fertilize the land, the soils and all that stuff. all that stuff go into all that, and you know what I'm saying, in agriculture here, like what we're reading here with our forefathers, and they had way good knowledge on that, on how to till the land, dress the land, what time of the year to grow things, so on and so forth. Okay. All right, verse 32. All right, it says, I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. You know what I'm saying? This is gonna be my job right here. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna separate everything, kind of, put everything in order. Verse 33. So shall my righteousness answer for me, and time to come when it shall come for my hire before thy face, every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. So he already prophesying, like, hey, watch him, this dude, watch Laban. He gonna try to say I stole his stuff when he start. He gonna see how things go. You know what I'm saying, as far as the animals and stuff, how the increase gonna take place. Now he's gonna try to say that, because he know the Lord blessing him for Jacob's sake. So Jacob know his stuff gonna multiply. It's gonna be even more bigger and larger than what Laban has already. Okay, so verse 34, and Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy word. So he said, okay, whatever you say. And so we read on, verse 35. And he removed that day the he goats that were ring straight and spotted, and all the goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. So he broke it up into his sons at this particular time. Verse 36. And he set 3 days journey behind. Dang. And he set 3 days journey betwixt himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. Okay, so he fed the rest of them. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar, this from the poplar tree, and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and piled white strakes in them, and made the white appear, which was the rods. Okay, and he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks, and the gutters, and the watering troughs, which the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they come to drink. So he had a setup where they will drink. They'll drink they'll drink the water, or come to like those those poles that he made, the sticks of some sort, and then those cattle, they will come there and they will mate as well. You know what I'm saying? While they getting water and food out of the troughs. Okay. All right. So Genesis chapter 30, verse 39, and the flocks conceived. Right. So now they conceive. Now they get So now they conceived. Right. Let me make sure I didn't forget nothing real quick. Okay. Now they conceived, so they start having more flocks. Start reproducing before the rods, and brought forth cattle, ring straight, speckled, and spotted. Brought more. Those same type of cattle, right? And Jacob did separate the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring straight, and all the brown in the flock of Laban, right? So he gave, he separated Laban's stuff separate from his, and he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not unto Laban's cattle, right? And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. Okay, he said, but when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. Okay, so the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. Okay, so to let you know. So those weak ones, the ones that were feeble, those are the weak ones. Those were Laban's stuff. Okay, and the stronger ones were Jacob. This is how the Lord deal with. Hey, he done what he's supposed to do, and the Lord gonna bless him. Okay, and verse 43, and the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and maidservants and manservants and camels and asses. Okay. So to let you know, he had all that stuff. The Most High was dealing with him, blessing him just like he did, same way he did Abraham, same thing he did Isaac, same thing followed through with Jacob. Okay. All right. Let's see where we at in time. Okay, 5:41. All right. Let's see here real quick. All righty. So all right. I see what it is. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's what it is. I got my notes kind of mixed up. Bear with me, y'all. All right. So about that, I'm gonna give you a precept here with verse 43. So we're gonna let's go to Psalms 115 real quick. Go there real quick if y'all got to write this down or put in your mental note if you have a strong mental note. All right, this Psalms 115 and verse 12. All right, the book of Psalms chapter 115 and verse 12. He said, "The Lord hath been mindful of us. He will bless us. He will bless the house of Israel." So you remember Jacob's name will change to Israel, right? He will bless the house of Aaron. He will bless them that fear the Lord, both small and great. The Lord shall increase you more and more, you and your children. Okay, you and your seed. Verse 15, ye are blessed of the Lord, which made heaven and earth. Okay, so to let you know, hey, we are Most High gonna bless us no matter what we do. We keep the commandments. Okay, we got to be keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, and the Lord will be with us. So to let you know, this go back to when Jacob was taking his journey, the Lord said He gonna be with him. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Let's go to Genesis chapter 28, and let's see here real quick what I want in here. We go here to chapter 28. We'll start at verse 19. Let me see. All right, hold on for a minute. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm gonna go up real quick. We'll start at verse 14. 13. All right. It says, "And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham, thy father, and the God of Isaac. He said, the land wherever thou liest to thee will I give it, and to thy seed." Right? It says, "And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread through to the west, and to the east, and to the north." Right? So you let know, you're gonna have seeds. It's gonna, this is why I told your forefathers the same thing is gonna happen with you. You're gonna inherit this blessing. "And to the south, and thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed." What is that going into when we go in captivity? And wherever we scatter, that would be called different names. You know what I'm saying? You'd be called out of your God-given name. And that's what I mean, the nations, going into those nations will be blessed because of you. All right? Because we will be blessed wherever we get scattered at. All right? Verse 15, "And behold, I am with thee, and I will keep thee in all places, whither thou goest, and will bring thee again unto this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of." Okay? So let's jump down to verse 20. "And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and I will keep me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on." He says, "So that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God." Okay, so that's what he made that vow. So the Lord, that's what to show you how the Lord will be with Jacob. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's not in his nativity land, but the Lord will always be with him because he's inheriting from Abraham, Isaac, and and it comes to Jacob, that inheritance, the blessings that he's going to, the promise that he's going to give to him. Okay. Alrighty. So now we in. That's how everything was increased. How he got rich. How he became rich in that land. So now we in chapter 31 and verse 1. It says, "And he heard the words Yeah, let me see. Yeah, 31 and verse 1. Let me go over my notes and stuff. I'm sorry. All right, so Genesis chapter 31, verse 1. And he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's had he gotten all this glory. So now they hating on him. You know what I'm saying? But they hating on him, but they don't remember, hey, you got blessed because of Jacob. All because of Jacob's sake. It wasn't because of you. So now, this is what people do. You got good things that take place, that happens maybe in your lifestyle. People start hating. They get jealous. They get envious off of your blessings, things that taking place. Instead of, hey, you know what? Hey, congratulations, man. Hey, all praises. I'm glad you getting, good things is taking place for you, especially if you're a good person. Verse 2, and Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, he was not toward him as before. So he like, hey, for one, I know how he was when I first met him. He was glad to see me. We was glad to see each other. We family as well. But, of course he had his niggerish ways, but he noticed, he like, man, this dude, something ain't right. Cause think about it, you could tell when you with somebody, you're around them, you can tell their countenance. You're able to discern them. How they maneuver, their mannerism, their face, how they treat you. When somebody not dealing with you, they'll be short in conversation, or they don't want to come around. He notices about his father-in-law, okay, which is his uncle. At the same time, he says, all right, verse 2, and Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as it was before. Okay, let's go. I got a couple presets. Let's go to Proverbs 21 and 8 real quick. Let's go there real quick. Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 8. It says, "The way of a man is froward and strange, right? But as for the pure, his work is right." So let the top of, we know Jacob is pure, and the type of work he did his right thing. He did his job, he did what he's supposed to do, and we know the Lord's with him. But it said, but the way of a man is froward, a regular man, like Laban, is forward and strange. So he looking at him like, man, he acting strange, man. This dude here not acting the same. He acting real funny, real weird toward me. Okay, so. Let's see here real quick. Let's go Proverbs. Let's go to the next chapter. Let's go up here to Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 22 real quick. Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 22. It says, "An angry man stirreth up strife, and a furious man aboundeth in transgression." Okay, so now he's upset. Laban, he's angry. He got strife in him, meaning he got hate. He really want to put hands on Jacob. At this point right here, this is how it's getting. Same thing. Process of time. If it was up to him, he would try to kill Jacob. But the Lord ain't gonna let that happen. All right, so let me read that again, verse 22. It said, "An angry man stirreth up strife, and a furious man aboundeth in transgression," evil, sin, right? So now we drop down to verse 27 in the same chapter, Proverbs 29 and 27. "An unjust man is an abomination to the just," right? And he that is upright in the way is abomination to the wicked. So now, them two opposites, they not gonna, they ain't gonna dwell together, So, so Jacob's looking at him and seeing him that he got hatred towards him, and how he's treating him, how he's been treating him over the years, and now things starting to change because he's getting blessing. Things going good in his favor. Now he want to hate on him. He don't want to deal with him right. So now he notices his countenance is off. The countenance don't fail. So he like, my uncle ain't treating me right, man. My father-in-law, what the hell going on with him? Why he acting funny like that? What I do to him? I ain't do nothing. Even his sons and them, you know what I'm saying? So like his brothers, Jacob's brothers-in-laws and all that stuff, hey, they acting crazy. Right? So We'll go back, Genesis 31:2. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban and said, behold, it was not toward him as before. So that's that strange what we was reading about. Okay, verse 3. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindreds, and I will be with thee. Just like what we read back in the other verses, right? And what we read in chapter 28, right? So just let you know, he said, hey, I'm gonna be with you. So now it's time. That's what he told him. Said now it's time for you to leave, because now he can see how Laban what's taking place. How he acting. So now he wants to do some harm to him. He want to he thinking evil. Ways that he can do something, deceive him, or try to get him killed or something, or hurt Jacob, right? All right. So verse 4. And verse 4 says, and Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his flock. So he like, hey, go, I need to go talk to both my wives real quick. Go, so he went and fetched for them. So he told his servants and them, or his sons, hey, go get your mom. Probably told him, go get your mother. Tell them to come here. I need to speak to them. So that way he could talk to them in private out there in the field while he's at work. The Laban and none of his people's around. So I need to talk to them. I need to have a family meeting here real quick with the ribs. All right. It says, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my father have been with me. He said, the Lord been with me. I've been sticking it out, dealing with this thing. So, he had patience, because Jacob could have just been like, what the heck with this? I'm gone. I'm leaving. But he had faith. And believed on the Most High. He had faith that the Most High is going to be with him, like he said in chapter 28. He said, hey, I'm going to be with you. You just stay here, and I'll give you word when it's time to leave. So now the Lord gave him word, said, hey, it's time for you to go on back, okay? It's time to leave, because this Negro here, he acting up. It's time to go. All right. Read verse 5 again. And said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father. Y'all know what I've done. I've been here. I done served him 14 years for y'all. And some more years. I'll get to that. It was more than 14 years. You know what I'm saying? As we get to read. And your father hath deceived me in changing my wages. How many times? 10 times. You know what I'm saying? I've been there. He done changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. Hear that? He said, but God suffered him not to hurt me. That's how you know the Lord was with him. Because any other type of person like that would do evil towards you. They'll try to, do some kind of mischief, kill you, something, something bad, So, but the Most High had his, had his hand on this the whole time. So Laban don't do nothing crazy toward Jacob, okay? Verse 8, he said, if he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckle. So everything them bear speckle. Because he said, and if he said thus, the ring straight shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring straight. Because, he wanted to try to get all, what's the name? He wanted all the cattle that were like solid, that was all brown, all black, all white, or whatever solid colors. But he wanted to give Jacob the ones that were like speckled and different colors and stuff like that. He wanted to give him that. But, hey, now all the cattle is that, Verse 9, Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. He said, the Lord give them to me. Why? Because, I worked hard for you, for this right here. I did these things, I did what I was supposed to do. And your father, he done changed wages. He acting like a nigga, forward man, he doing what he wanted to do. Okay, so verse 10, and it came to pass, and it came to pass at that time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring straight, speckled and gristled. Right, so now he's mentioned there's different types of different colors of cattle. Different. I guess now they got different varieties of them. When you can buy different all type of cattle and stuff. We know today we know the black cattle that you see. You might ride through, you see all the black cattle. That's called Angus. That's what you got. The Angus beef is an all black cattle. Okay. I'm gonna bring this up, make something funny. I remember a long time ago. I remember my oldest son. He asked me. He said, "Hey, Dad, I got a question. So I know cows. Cows make milk." He said, "So does chocolate milk come from the black cows?" He had asked me. I said, "Nah, man." I had to laugh at it because I never heard that. But make you think. I was like, I can see why he said that. But I just figured I'd throw that in for some humor. But yeah. Let me go back to the word. Genesis 31:11. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ringstraked, speckled, and gristled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. So I've been watching. Your father-in-law. See how he been acting. He been doing you wrong. So I got something for him. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna make everything go to you. Verse 13. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowedest a vow unto me. And now arise and get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. Right. So when he made that vow, that was I know I kind of skipped through in chapter 28, but toward the end of 28, that's where he made the vow, and he anointed the rock, that after he did his what do you call it, his tithes, okay, at that particular time, a tenth, what he burnt for offering. So now he's letting them know, hey, now is that time for you to leave. This is what he was bringing out of when we go back in the same chapter. Remember where it says. In verse 3, I'll go back and read Genesis 31:3. It says, And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindreds, and I will be with thee. Okay, so that's what we hear. The small portion of it now is going more in depth of what the Lord said in the dream and the vision that he gave Jacob. Okay, while he was there in the land of Padanaram. Okay, so it says. Let's see here real quick. Verse 11. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ringstraked, speckled, and gristled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. Now it's time to go to Israel, or the land of Canaan at this particular time. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? So they're like, yeah, is there anything for us here? Because they see what's taking place, how their father being, toward their husband and toward them. You know what I'm saying? I'll read on to prove it. Verse 15, are we not counted of him strangers? That's what he's saying. Are we not counted to him as strangers? For he hath sold us and hath quite devoured also our money, So I'm telling you, he's in there borrowing money and all type of stuff, actually I ain't going to say borrowing money because he had money, but he's not paying his portion. He done changed the wages, so he's not being upright in business. He's doing wicked in business, and that's why some people don't do business with family, because there's certain things that take place, how certain people act. You gotta know who you doing business with, and also when you do business, you gotta put everything in writing. Okay, you gotta know how a certain person is. Then some people just change. It may start off good, and some things change, and some business it be legit, what I'm saying, amongst you and whomever you do business with, but like I said, it all going to proving a friend. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Didn't have that in my notes. Sirach 6 and 7. Let's get that real quick. Sirach chapter 6 and verse 7. It said, if thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. Okay? So you prove a friend. You want to get to know them. It's a lifetime. It take a lifetime to know somebody, or to get to learn them. And then as you read on down, they show you different type of, people, because some friends will become your enemy, okay? So I'm going to jump down here real quick I'm going to show you what's taking place here. Okay, we'll jump at verse 13. Sirach 6 and 13 says, separate thyself from thine enemies and take heed of thy friends. Okay, so now it's time to, because they family and friends. So now it's time for, he said, I got to separate myself. I got to go. It's time to leave. I see I ain't welcome here no more. It's time to go. I got things for me. The Lord said, hey, pack up and let's go. All right, so let me go back to where I left off at. All righty, excuse me. Let's see here real quick. Yeah. Verse 15, this Genesis chapter 31, verse 15. Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us and hath quite devoured also our money. So, he just doing us bad. Even his daughters, you know what I'm saying? For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. So that's what, this is what both of them said to Jacob. Okay? Verse 17, then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels. So he put them on the camels. To let you know, he had camels, he had donkeys, he had cow, he had goats, sheep. He had everything. He had all type of stuff. Okay? Verse 18, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padanaram. Okay, so now let me go to the map real quick for y'all. Just to pull up real quick. Bear with me. Let me see. Bear with me, y'all. I'm trying to get the map. I'm gonna pull it up. Alrighty, where you at? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go to. Let me go to this. I'm gonna go to this map first. All right, so I'm gonna transition this. As y'all can see, you'll see up as you're looking at the map. You'll see kind of at the top, like where the arrows kind of make a triangle. You'll see where it says Haran or Padanaram, right? Or you see the Hurrians or Hurrians. So up in that area there, that's where Jacob was at. Okay, this is where he got Rachel and Leah. Okay, Rachel and Leah. This is where they dwelling at. This is where Laban lives. Okay, and as he's up here, they up here. This is where he's dwelling at. You can kind of see it is like in the middle, but at the top, it's in the middle and in between. You got the Tigris River on the right, and then on the left side you see the Euphrates River that goes up in between. So they're like somewhat right outside the Euphrates, what you see, but in the land of Syria. So like the land of, you can say that's like Syria today. I assume. I got to look at it on them. I want to say it's Syria because that's what they. The landmass kind of changes back and forth, but yeah, I would say it's Syria. So yeah, they because that's what they call Laban the Syrian, right? So this is where they at. So I'm gonna just read that again. This is verse Genesis 31-18. And he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padanaram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan, right? So now he's trying to go down into Canaan. You'll see, if you see there in the Mediterranean Sea, you'll see where that red arrow goes down from where it makes the triangle, and you'll see to the left it says Canaan. So all that land where you see like the Bethel and Shechem and all that area there, that's considered the land of Canaan. All that stuff up there. So this is where he's trying to go back to. to his family, to his father's house, right? Uh, yeah, let me go back real quick. Transition back. All right, just wanted to show y'all that, but I'm gonna let me pull the other map up right fast. I just wanted to show you that because it showed kind of a bigger space of the map. Okay, so this is Jacob's journey with transition. All right, so as a transition there, so now the majority of what you see is Canaan, right? This is Canaan, and then you as we go further as you go further north up, then it goes into take you up to Padanaram in Syria today. Okay, all right. I'm gonna give you a little moment to look at the map so you can see what's going on, what's taking place. This is Jacob's journey. We'll transition back to it, but yeah. All right. So verse 19. This Genesis chapter 31, verse 19. It says, "And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's." Okay. So now these images, right? So now these are the images what Laban and them, they worship idols. Okay, so now you see something about Rachel, right? You notice Leah didn't do that. The other women, the other handmaids and them, they didn't go do that. So, but Rachel, you know what I'm saying? She still had, just like let's say like you may have your wife or whatever. You come into this truth, and then your wife, she still might got a cross somewhere in the house or something her grandma gave her. She might be a cross that she's stuck in. She still got Christianity. She got a cross. She got or for those who are Hispanic, so-called Hispanic Northern Kingdom, they got who was in Catholicism. So she might got a rosary bead somewhere hidden in the house. That sometimes to be some idols could be there that you don't even have any whereabouts. That it's an idol. Because something you had at home. It could be some family tradition. You take something sentimental from your mom, from your grandma. It was given down from generation to generation. You gotta remember, you new creatures. A lot of those things you don't need that stuff because it ain't gonna do nothing. It's all like superstitions. It all go into idolatry at the end of the day. So yeah, just keep that in mind, brothers and sisters. Okay, then like for y'all who used to be in Islam, hey, your wife might have something symbolic to the Kaaba stone or whatever. Or she might have a necklace or a charm that has that sun, that crescent moon, and the star, and all that stuff. So you gotta. Who knows? I'm just being funny. She might have an old bean pie or something that'll rot it or something. I just making y'all laugh, but yeah, just be mindful. There's a lot of idols. A lot of things that is considered idols. What I'm saying, that's in the world. Of course, as long as you ain't bowing down to things. You can have figurines and things in the house, but it's showing where Rachel's mindset was at. So she took her father's idols, so she still secretly was worshiping. You got to think about it. Look, you got to look at how she how she was barren the whole majority of the time. So she only had one son, and then everybody else had multiple sons. So at this particular time, she only had one son. Okay, so let you know that she has some wickedness and evil about her. Okay, so let me go back to that real quick. Verse 9, this Genesis 31 and 19 says, "And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's." Okay, all right. It says, "And Jacob stole away unawares." Says of Jacob, he stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, and that he told him not. He told him not that he fled. So let he left. There was those items were taken too, but he wasn't aware that Rachel took that stuff. But he leaving, he packing his stuff up, but he didn't let he leaving. I'm not telling Laban nothing. We leaving, we gone. So verse 21 says, "So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river." Right, and he passed over the river and set his face toward Mount Gilead. Right, so just like I showed you in the map, let me see, that river that they crossed through was the Euphrates River. So let me go to Abraham's journey real quick. So as I was showing you how they was up there, you'll see where it says Padanaram, where the arrow meets up at kind of at the top like a triangle. So you'll see where the Hurrians or Padanaram or Haran. So this is where they was dwelling at. That river that you see there, that's the Euphrates over there. So as he crosses over there, he's going to Gilead. Okay. So let me go to Jacob's map real quick. Bear with me. I gotta take some of this stuff down, reorganize my maps. Okay. Hold on, got the wrong thing. All right, here we go. Jacob's journey. All right, we'll transition this back. Okay, so as you can see, Jacob's journey, right? So he's trying to make his way. You see where it says Gilead. So he got his face looking toward the south because he's trying to come south to go into Canaan. Okay. So as I'm just giving y'all a little sight, something to look at, at the map. So verse 21. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face toward the Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. He said, hey, Jacob and them, they gone. They ain't there no more. So they done left. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey. And they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. So now they done came there. Now they done, surrounded Jacob. They caught up with him and surrounded him. Verse 24, and God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. He said, hey, don't. He told him, man, don't even speak to him. I don't want you speaking to him. Good. Don't say anything good or bad to him. But Laban a nigga. He got his own mindset. Verse 25. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the Mount Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what hast thou done? So now he's speaking to Jacob, like, what have you did, man? And that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword. So now he making stuff up, like, now you done threaten my daughters and them to leave, tell them to leave and stuff. Which wasn't so. It is showing you what his mindset at. Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly and steal away from me, and didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with myrrh and with songs and tabret and with harp? That's what he's saying. And has not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters, that thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. So this is what Laban's saying. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. So he like, I could kill you right now if I want to, or beat you up. Is what Laban's saying. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. But then why you talking to me for? Why you didn't go? That's what Jacob said in his mind. It's showing you he don't listen. Verse 30, and now though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? So you took my gods, his idols. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, peradventure thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me. He said, I was afraid you're going to take my family from me. So he like, nah, so I'm leaving, what I'm saying? I ain't got time. I don't try to leave a few times. You done bribe me to stay with you. Verse 32, with whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. He said, whoever has it, you kill him. Don't let him live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. He didn't know Rachel took these things. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tent, but he found them not. So he didn't find the stuff as he went through everybody. Then went he out to Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture and sat upon them. So she's sitting on the furniture, the stuff where she got the things hidden at. And Laban searched all the tent and found them not. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord, that I cannot rise up before thee, for the customs of women is upon me. So she lied and said, this is my time of the month. So she said she's unclean. And he searched he searched and found not the images, because she's hiding them. And okay, she's sitting on them pretty much. And Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban. So now Jacob, he upset. He's saying what he need to say to Laban. He arguing with him now. Hey man, what's this for? What is it? Why are you doing all this? What? He said, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? And that was what he told him. What is my trespass? What is my sin? What have I done? He said, that thou hast so hotly pursued after me. You done come rust on up here like you about to do something. He said, whereas thou hast searched all my stuff that hast thou found of all thy household stuff. You find anything of yours? See it there before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge between us both. This 20 years have I been with thee. He said, I've been with you for 20 years. He said, now we know he served 14 years, right? For the two daughters, right? Really one daughter, but he got tricked for the other one. So he served 20 years. They said here, the ewes and the she goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. I didn't eat your rams. That which was torn of beast I brought not unto thee. So you know the Lord had them beasts. He had the beast come and eat his stuff, or kill his cattle. He said, I bear the loss of it of my hand. Didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night? Thus I was in the day. The drought consumed me, and the frost by night. I was out here, all day, whether it was hot outside or whether it was cold at night, or the frost or whatever. He said, I've been out here working, laboring hard, and my sleep departed from mine eyes. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy two daughters, and 6 years for the cattle. And thou hast changed my wages 10 times. So I've been with you that many times, you changed the wages 10 times. It said, except God of my father, this verse 42, chapter 31, verse 42. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac, had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. He said, God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesterday. He told you last night. He rebuked you in a dream. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have born? Okay, so I know I got time running short. Bear with me, I'm almost done. Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones, and they took stones, and made an heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jegar-sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. Okay, that's where you see Mount Gilead, or it is pronounced a little different. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead. And Mizpah, for he said, the Lord watched between me and thee when we were absent one from another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is a witness between me and thee. So this is what they doing, they swearing, doing their little covenant thing. Verse 51, and Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold this pillar, which I have cast between me and thee. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness. But I will not pass over this heap to thee, and that thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. He said, and early in the morning Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them, and Laban departed and returned to his place. So he went back to Padanaram. Okay, so that right there, brothers and sisters, hope y'all got something from it. That was, part two. This is our father's Jacob, part two. Okay, so the next time I'll go. We'll do some more chapters, more going into some more going into Jacob and his 12 sons. Okay, and the 12 tribes. I'll just say it like that. So with that, y'all, hope y'all got something from it. Again, I'm Officer Nahum with IUIC Raleigh. If y'all can one day, hey, come visit us in IUIC Raleigh, or come visit IUIC Gastonia. We in the Carolinas, North Carolina. Come check us out. When y'all get a chance. Right now we in the midst of construction, building